Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. A very, very warm good evening to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you to today's webinar of Science and Technology, a place where we will discuss the most important current affairs from the last month from the field of science and technology. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Tina, don't worry, I will be around. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I hope your class has ended. Good evening, good evening. Hello, Ashok. Good evening. The class has not ended. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Just in case there are a few people whose class has not ended, let's take a couple of minutes. So, okay, I'll just write it here. We will resume at 8:35. Okay. Just in case someone's class has not ended, don't worry. We'll resume at 8:35. So I'm giving you 2-3 minutes so that you can come back and then we can resume. Okay. 8:35. Okay. 8:35 will be back. Just give me a couple of minutes. Hi everyone, once again, good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope all of you are back now. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. I see a lot of interesting comments here. Okay, so I see a lot of interesting comments here, and mainly the comments are about whether or not some people will stay here or not. So don't worry, at least I am here. If you are concerned about that, I can't talk about anyone else. So yes, I am here for now. So let's end those questions. Let's focus on what is it that is at our hands right now. So we are here for your weekly webinar. As you know, this webinar was supposed to happen last week. We had to reschedule due to some scheduling issues. Now we are back. Today's webinar is about science and technology. As you know, in these webinars, our endeavor is to topic wise discuss all the current affairs that have been in the news, subject wise in the past 1 month or so. Today, we will be covering all those important news stories that were in the news, especially from the science and technology field. These are the topics that we have taken up for today's discussion. So there are a total of 7 topics that we'll be discussing. First, malaria vaccine rollout that has started in Cameroon. We'll be discussing what are the aspects of malaria vaccine rollout, where does India stand, how is India connected to it, which are the vaccines that are being rolled out, and can we see the rollout in India as well. Second topic, light emitting diodes, again a lot in the news. This was a topic on which we saw some articles in the Indian Express and in the Hindu newspaper as well, because the scientific community has again talked a lot about the concept of the LED, the future that it holds, how is it important in our fight to be much more efficient while consuming energy. Third topic, recommendation of the Vijay Raghavan panel. Now, the Vijay Raghavan panel was a panel that was recently formed to give recommendation on the working of the DRDO. So they were the ones who gave recommendation on the working of the DRDO, how to improve the working, what are the lacunas, where can we improve. Fourth topic is a topic that appeared in the Down to Earth magazine and website. There is a scientific study that has talked about how PTSD, that is post traumatic stress disorder, has an impact on cerebellum, which is a part of your brain. So we'll be discussing what that is. Next, again, there is a proper report given by the World Economic Forum on the concept of green hydrogen. So, World Economic Forum has come out with a detailed report about the future of green hydrogen, not just in India but around the world. What is it that India has to do in order to not miss the bus for green hydrogen? What do we have to do to make it more affordable, to make it an integral part of our lives? Next topic, antimicrobial resistance. And in the end, the last topic would be a failed lunar mission from the US, that is the Peregrine Mission 1. These are the topics that we have taken up for today's discussion. So let's begin with the first one. The first topic that we have here is about malaria vaccine rollout. Now, what exactly is a malaria vaccine rollout? Why is it in the news? Let's try and understand this. In India, especially and unfortunately, we are all familiar with the malaria disease. Malaria that you actually get from the bite of a mosquito, it's a parasitic disease. It affects thousands and lakhs of people every single year, and not just in India. It's a disease that is found in very large numbers, especially in Africa. Amongst the Asian countries, India is the one where you usually see malaria cases, mostly in all parts of the country. Now, the problem is so far, if you go back a few months, we did not have a vaccine for malaria. But now some breakthrough has come in, and we have seen not one but two malaria vaccines that have been developed. Now, these malaria vaccines are now being rolled out. The first country to roll out the vaccine, especially for children, is Cameroon. Now, Cameroon has started rolling out these vaccines. Now, if you remember, we discussed this a couple of days back in the Hindu newspaper analysis as well on YouTube. When we did our CNA, we discussed about how Cameroon is the first country. Now, why are we covering this here as well? Because we are taking not just that information, but we are also discussing one other aspect, that is how is it connected to India. The reason why it is in the news, as we said, Cameroon is the world's first country where mass vaccine rollout of malaria is taking place right now. Do remember that as a fact. We had discussed this earlier as well. Where exactly is malaria found? Malaria, as you know, is a disease that depends upon how many mosquitoes breed in that particular area. Now, mosquitoes require certain kind of temperature, certain climatic conditions to survive and to thrive. And that is why mostly it is the tropical countries where you will see malaria, because this is where mosquitoes thrive. When you go higher up, when you go towards, let's say, temperate countries, you will not see malaria cases. Usually, it is very difficult to see malaria cases, for example, in Europe. Also, when you go towards the US, usually you will not see malaria cases. I'll remind you one more thing. Do you remember when the COVID 19 crisis was going on, the American president asked India to send a medicine that is used for malaria? Do you remember that? Which medicine was that? Prerna, rollout means starting to give to the people. Do you remember which vaccine or which medicine was that? Yes, Sri Lakshmi, Sujay have given the correct answer. Alok also, Brajneet also, Vivek, Shubham. Okay, some people have given the correct answer. Nazia as well. It was hydrochloroquine. Do you remember? Remember hydrochloroquine? If you remember when the COVID 19 crisis was going on and no one in the world knew how to treat this, what will be the medicine, we were just making experiments. So, someone thought, some scientists thought that hydrochloroquine that is used to treat malaria can be a good medicine against COVID 19. America, the most powerful country in the world, had no stock of this medicine. They asked India to send this medicine, and we sent it in large numbers. Now, just imagine how is it? And this medicine is not very expensive, it's a very cheap medicine. It's a very cheap medicine. You can get it at a very, very low cost in India. So, now imagine how is it that a powerful country like the US had no stock of this medicine while India had such a large stock. It was nothing to do with the capability. It was all to do with the fact that America does not have malaria cases, because the malaria as a disease dependent on mosquitoes, they don't thrive in the US, and that is why they never had the chance, or they never felt the need to have a good stock of this medicine. That's why India supplied it in large numbers. Although later on it was found out that this medicine is not related to any cure of COVID 19. But again, that proves the fact that malaria as a disease does not exist in all parts of the world. It is very climatic dependent. However, however, interestingly, if you look at the past few months, there are some cases now which are coming up in countries such as US as well. How is that possible? This is because of climate change. With climate change, now that you see other countries also having an increase in the average temperature, you will see mosquitoes thriving in other parts of the world as well, where earlier you would not find them. And that is why now diseases such as malaria are being seen in other parts of the world as well. But even today, most of the majority of the deaths due to malaria only take place in Africa. In fact, WHO says Africa made up 94% cases and 95% of the global malaria deaths in 2022, which again proves the fact that it is a disease that depends upon the area, the sanitation, the hygiene, the climatic conditions as well. In Asia, there are two countries that have most of the malaria cases, India and Indonesia. So do remember, all these are important facts that you need to remember. India and Indonesia, these are the two Asian countries which have most of the load of the malaria cases in our part of the world, that is in Asia. Now, in the past few years, especially since 2019, since the world was so focused on COVID 19 that all the research around the world was only on developing a COVID 19 vaccine. Now that the world has come out of that pandemic, now we have again started to go back and focus on the other diseases. And this is where vaccine development for malaria also has begun. And now we have two vaccines for malaria. That is why countries now around the world can expect that the malaria cases will come down. Now, in Cameroon and in other African countries who will pay for this vaccine, people are not financially strong enough to pay for that vaccine. So this vaccine is being funded by UNICEF and Gavi, GAVI. Gavi is Global Alliance of Vaccine Initiative. So it's a global alliance of vaccine initiative. This particular vaccine is being developed by a British pharmaceutical company called GSK. It's a company whose products are used in India as well. Its full name is GlaxoSmithKline. You will see GlaxoSmithKline medicines being sold in India as well. This is the first ever vaccine against a parasitic disease. Because understand, from a scientific point of view, it's easier to make a vaccine against virus, but to make a vaccine against parasite is very difficult. And that is something that has been developed now. Now, the good part is one more vaccine has also been given the WHO approval. That is called R21. It is developed by Oxford University and it will be made by Serum Institute of India. Now, please understand, the Serum Institute of India that is making the Covishield vaccine, it is a vaccine manufacturer. It does not do research. So Oxford University did all the research for Covishield as well. They told what is the formula, how to make it, and then they gave that technology to Serum Institute to make that vaccine. Similarly, here also the R21 malaria vaccine that we have, it is being developed, researched, all of that is done by Oxford, and now the manufacturing thing will happen at the Serum Institute. This is the connection that India has. The second vaccine is being manufactured in India. That is the Serum Institute of India. Someone is asking why only Serum Institute was given this by Oxford. See, a couple of things. Number one, Serum Institute has an agreement with Oxford University. Second, Serum Institute is the largest manufacturer of vaccine in the world. So they have the largest capacity. So it's not that they are doing a favor to Serum Institute, because Serum Institute of India has shown the capacity that it has. This is why around the world the companies prefer that Serum Institute makes the vaccines. Around the world, most of the vaccines that are distributed are somewhere made in Serum Institute of India, and they have a pact with Oxford as well. Now, let's focus on why WHO's pre-qualification is required. As I told you earlier, so far WHO has given pre-qualification to two vaccines for malaria. One, the GlaxoSmithKline, and second, the one R21, which is being manufactured in India. Why is it important? See, when WHO gives a pre-qualification status to a vaccine, what it means is the vaccines are now safe and can be acquired to be given to large population. Only after the WHO certification will UNICEF and other organizations procure this. So the vaccine, the second one also, since now it has been given the pre-qualification tag, they will now be eligible to be bought by UNICEF, Gavi, and other organizations, and now they will be given. WHO's pre-qualification status is on the basis of the quality of the vaccine, the tests that have been conducted, how effective the vaccine is it safe or not. Also remember this Gavi alliance that we are talking about, it played a key role in rolling out the COVID-19 vaccine as well in poorer nations. Please understand this idea. When it comes to rich countries, the US and European countries, they are able to buy vaccine at whatever cost. For example, when the COVID-19 vaccine was delivered first by Moderna, Pfizer, America, European countries gave them the advance, they were able to procure the medicine. But it is the poorer countries that have the problem. In case of poor countries, the government does not have enough money. They can't charge the people for the vaccine. So they are dependent on international organizations like Gavi, etc., to come in and help them. This is where these kind of WHO pre-qualifications actually help. Gavi has been working since the year 2000 and gets funding from different parts. Now, this is what you know, what you need to know so far. Let's see if you can answer this particular question. It's a question that the UPSC had asked in prelims examination a few years back. Let's see if you can answer this. Read this carefully, and I'll give you your options. Should I give you the options? Okay, your time starts now. Pratika, the first vaccine is named RTS, second vaccine is named R21. All right. The answer here is given correctly by 24% people. The answer actually here is B. The reason why it is difficult to have an effective malaria vaccine specifically is because people don't develop immunity just by having a malaria infection. See, usually what happens when you catch a certain disease and your body overcomes it, it is believed that your body will now have immunity against that disease because your body now knows how to fight against it. Your body has developed antibodies against the infection. But in case of malaria, that does not happen because your body does not develop antibodies against it. There is no starting point of the vaccine, and that's why research on malaria vaccine has gone on for such a long time, because there is no natural antibody that is created. And when there is no natural antibody created, there is no starting point of the scientist of what to make, how to fight against it, and that is why malaria vaccine has been delayed for such a long time. This is why malaria vaccine has been very difficult to come by. That's why it is a very, very, very difficult, or a very big achievement rather, that it has now been rolled out, and only two have been rolled out, although malaria is such a old disease. But even now, there are only two vaccines. Anyways, this was your first topic for the day. Before I go on to the second topic, let me take up a few questions very quickly. Akash is saying, please explain how pre-qualification helps. So, Akash, pre-qualification by WHO is kind of like WHO giving a status or giving a kind of a recognition that this vaccine is of a certain level. It's kind of a ISI mark that we certify the quality of this vaccine and now it is safe to buy. It's not that it is compulsory, but alliances such as Gavi will only buy vaccines when they have been given the pre-qualification mark by WHO. That is how it helps. Ekta, yeah, those who are asking the name of the vaccine, the first was RTS, that is the one made by GlaxoSmithKline, and the second being made in India is R21. Vanshika, Cameroon is in the news because they are the first country to roll out this malaria vaccine now. That is why it is in the news. Yes, Kosto. Sham, no, malaria is not by any mosquito. There are specific mosquitoes carrying that parasite. Only that mosquito is capable of giving you the infection. Pooja is asking why is Africa related to Pooja. 95% of the entire deaths in the world due to malaria happen only in Africa. That's why it is connected. Pritika, roll out means giving it to the people now. Okay, a few questions about Gavi, GAVI, Global Alliance of Vaccine Initiative. So basically, it is a group of multiple organizations, NGOs, etc. Rich people have come together to make a group. What does it do? It buys vaccine from the companies and gives it free of cost to poor governments so that they can give it to their common people. That is what Gavi does. In fact, for COVID-19 vaccine also, Gavi was the one who bought a lot of vaccines. They were the ones who then distributed to African countries where it was administered to the people. Okay. Hello. Anushka, I am not going anywhere. Don't worry. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead with the second one then. The second topic that we have here is again from Science LED, that is light emitting diodes. Now, light emitting diodes, you might not have heard the full form, but I'm sure everyone has heard the name LED time and time again. You might have heard about it when you buy a television. You might have heard about it when you decorate your house. You might have heard about it if when you are in class 11 studying physics, but you would have heard about LED sometime or the other. Now, what is LED? Why is it in the news? What is the context of it? Let's try and understand. Light emitting diodes, or the LEDs, basically they are the source of light that are being used around the world mostly. The speciality being that they consume very little energy as compared to the other bulbs. As compared to the earlier sources that we were using, the LEDs consume much lesser energy. The reason why they're in the news is the Royal Swedish Academy of Science has given a statement recently saying that while incandescent light bulbs were responsible for the production or for lighting of the 20th century, 21st century would be illuminated by the LED lamps. And that is why it has become extremely, extremely important. Now, if you look at the LED bulbs, how they have changed our lives, it's very important to see. Most of the lights that you see around you, compare that with when you were kids. If you remember when you were kids, the kind of bulbs that you have at your homes, the yellow bulbs with the filament and all, those bulbs are very rarely seen now. Mostly all of them have been replaced by the LEDs. Now the reason again is, number one, they're extremely, extremely energy efficient, and that is why around the world governments have been forcing the people to buy LEDs, although they are expensive to begin with as compared to normal CFL bulbs. But LEDs are considered to be much more environmental friendly. Now, LED is again light emitting diode, means there is a diode that emits light, that is called LED. So let's understand what is a diode. A diode is something that you would have studied in class 11th physics if you had science. If you did not have science, don't worry. You just need to understand very, very basic details of it. UPSC will not ask you to become a science student once again. As long as you know a bit of detail, a bit of very basic information, you are good to go. So, what exactly is diode? Let's try and understand that. Diode is very small electronic component, very small, 5 millimeter wide. The important part about diode, why is it important? It allows the flow of current, electric charge, from one direction to the other. In the diode, the current can only flow from one direction to the other. It does not allow current to flow in the opposite direction. That is the most important part. Diode has two junctions, P and N. P is positive, N is negative. Do understand, in simple terms, current is nothing but flow of electrons. You all would have heard about electrons. So when electrons flow from one place to other, you say that current is flowing. As long as electron is flowing from one place to other, that is the flow of current. Electron is what? Negatively charged. You all know the basic concept. Negative attracts positive, right? So electrons flow from negative to positive. That is the only direction in which current flows. Any diode allows only the flow of current from this place to the other, from one direction to the other, that is from negative to positive. This is how diodes usually work. The positive side of the semiconductor is called the P side, and the negative side basically is called the N side. Electrons flow from one place to the other. Electrons carry negative charge. Opposite of electrons is something called holes. Electrons is negatively charged, holes is positively charged. Let's try and understand a very basic definition of electron and hole. Electron, as I said, subatomic particle having a negative charge. What is a hole? So when electron goes from one place to the other, let's say electron was here, it moved from here to here. So it left an empty space here. This empty space basically is called the hole. Absence of an electron is called the hole in very simple terms. Just remember a few basic things. Number one, electron negatively charged, holes positively charged. Absence of electron leaves a hole. Whenever someone goes, they leave a vacant space. So when electron leaves, that place is called the hole. It is positively charged. Also, there is one more concept that you need to understand, a very basic concept on the basis of which light is emitted. This is called the band gap. See, all of you in basic science have learned about energy. How is the light energy produced? Whenever you talk about energy, energy just changes its form. Electric energy converts into light energy. That is how LEDs light up. That is how you see light. How is this light generated in LED? That is on the basis of something called the band gap. It is a difference in energy between the highest and the lowest band of the material. Just remember this one basic line. You don't need to go into even more detail. For all these three, electrons, holes, and band gap. As long as you remember this one line definition, you are safe. Electron, negatively charged subatomic particles. Holes are positively charged. They are the places that are vacated when electron is absent. And third, the band gap. It is a difference in energy between the highest and the lowest unoccupied state of the material. This difference in the energy, the band gap, it leads to production of light. That is how light is emitted at the end of the day. This is the concept in which the LEDs usually work. Again, they allow the flow of current only in one direction. LED has revolutionized the way the world works, the way the world uses its energy, the way the world lights up, because of which people behind the LED have even been given the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2014. When you see the LEDs, there are different colors that are emitted. When you decorate your house, you'll see different colors LEDs. How does that work? So basically, the breakthrough in the LED technology was the blue emitting light. When you talk about the different colors that LEDs have, LEDs majorly have colors blue, red, and green. Depending upon the band gap, depending upon the material, the semiconductor used in making of the LED, there are different colors in the LED that you see. Blue colored LED was extrememely important. See, when you use LED bulbs in your household, you don't use green or red LEDs, right? You use your LEDs which are white or bluish in color. So invention of blue LEDs was extremely important. Only when the blue LEDs were invented, that is when it became easier to be used on a large scale in our houses. That is where the blue light emitting LED was a big breakthrough. The blue light emitting MED made sure that LEDs now can be used as a source of energy in your household. Even before that, red and green LEDs were used. How do they have different colors? The colors emitted by the LEDs mainly depend upon the material, the semiconductor that is used in the making of that diode. Do remember that. Also, when you go and let's say buy a television, a smart TV, you would have different options of the screens now. The seller would ask you, do you want to buy LED screen, do you want to buy LCD screen? So LCD was an earlier technology, LED is a more later technology. LCD is mainly used for fluorescent lights, while the LEDs are mainly used as light emitting diodes. LEDs are much more thinner, they are much more energy efficient, they have a better quality in terms of video. When you have a computer screen or when you have a, let's say, TV screen with LED as compared to LCD, you will see the LED screen being much better, being much more energy efficient. They have a wider viewing angle than LCD. What does it mean? For example, let's say there is a TV kept in front of you. If you are sitting in front of the TV, you can watch it properly. But when you start moving to the other side, let's imagine this. Let's say this is the TV. You are sitting here on the sofa with a popcorn in your hand. All is well, you can watch it. Now, your mother asks you, go and bring me some water. So now you get up, and this is where the water is. Now, when you get up, you don't want to miss a scene from your favorite movie. When you stand here, would you be able to see the TV or not? Are you able to watch it properly or not? You would have to come in front, right? If your answer is no, that you can't watch it, then I'm sorry, guys, you don't have the proper LED at your place. Spend some more money, maybe get the LED, and you will be able to watch it. So basically, that is what you mean by having a better viewing angle. So in LEDs, you can actually watch it at an angle as well. With the LCDs, if the angle is changed, if you're not sitting in 180 degree with the LCDs, the viewing basically becomes problematic. So yes, next time when your parents ask you to get a glass of water and you get up and you can't watch it, please tell them to spend more money on the television and get you a better television. That is how it will become better. That is the difference between LED and the LCDs. Anyways, let's go on with the next topic then. Or next, rather, first question for this topic. Read this carefully. Tina, OLED means, so there are different technology that you see, QLED, OLED, etc. OLED is organic LED. So there are different variations in LED technology that have come up. This is called organic LED basically. That is an LED where pixels emit much more light as compared to others. They have their own light, they don't rely on backlight, etc. So it's a better viewing experience basically. Okay, have you read this? Your options are here now. And your time is up. 31% were able to answer this question correctly. This is C. Again, if you see all the three statements, out of the three, only first and the third here are correct. Let's see this. First, sodium lamps. So basically, what are sodium lamps? Sodium lamps are the usual LED or the usual bulbs that you used to have in your house while growing up. They produce light 160 degree, but not so in case of LED lamps. This is absolutely true. So LED lamps basically have a direction, or they produce light in 180-degree maximum and not 360 degrees. For example, when you have, and you can experience this. For example, if you have an LED bulb and put it on your wall, see whether your wall or how much of it is emitted or how much light do you see on the wall as compared to where the wall is or where the surface is. Compare that with the bulb and you will see the LEDs are not 360-degree light emitting, they only emit light in 180 degrees. Second is wrong. LEDs, one of the things that actually works in favor of LED is it is much more energy efficient. So it will consume much lesser energy and the life is much longer. That is why now when you go and buy LED bulb, every LED company will give you at least 1 year warranty. You see that when you buy the LED bulb, they will give you, or they will write the date on which you bought it, and they will basically write it with a marker. Within 1 year, you can come and replace. And notice that. That is because the LED bulbs have a longer lifespan as compared to normal sodium lamps. That is opposite. In the normal bulbs that we used to get, the yellow bulbs, there was no warranty. If you bought it to your place, even if it lasted for 2 hours or 4 hours only, there was no warranty, there was no going back. LED bulbs, on the other hand, do have this warranty. Third, spectrum of visible light from sodium lamps sorry, is almost monochromatic, while LED bulbs offer other advantages in street lighting. Yes. So basically, if you see the LED or the normal sodium bulbs, yellow in color, they were different, did not really offer much apart from this, while the LED lamps do offer different color schemes as well. That is why the answer here is C. 1 and 3 here are correct. Anyways, before we move on, let me quickly take up your other questions. Divya, thank you so much. And as I said, I'm here, don't worry. Anjali has given a fact. Anjali is saying you in Burj Khalifa 1.2 million LEDs were used. Wow. Anjali, I'll give you one more fact. Although I don't know it is true or not. Other fact that I know is in Burj Khalifa, the people who are working, who are employees, they are suggested, or they have been suggested not to use the washrooms in Burj Khalifa. If it's possible, go outside because it does not really have a good proper sanitation system. That's a fact for you. So you gave me one fact, I'll give you one more fact for Burj Khalifa. I have not been there, so I can't personally attest to that. But this is something that I did read somewhere. So maybe you can also go and read about it. Okay. So we read about it, but apparently they did not have a best sanitation and system of drainage, etc. So they advise as much as possible the people working there should go and use washroom outside. Yes, yes, Mega, read somewhere. That's why I have not included in the slide. If I was 100% true, I would have included that in the slide itself. But since I've only read it somewhere, I've not included it on the slide. Okay. Himanshu saying after joining IFS, we'll offer you a ticket to Dubai. Himanshu, ticket to Dubai I can afford even right now. If you can offer me a business class ticket, that's something that I can look forward to. Normal ticket to Dubai I can afford right now, so don't worry. Okay. Ram is saying what is parasitic disease? Ram, a disease caused by a parasite is called a parasitic disease. Nikhil, because a lot of people are asking this question in the chat. That's why I'm answering them. Um, yes, Navya, for street lighting, we do use the LED lamps now. Nikhat, don't worry, please. Dave Smita, I hope so. Megha, I do believe you, don't worry. Okay, on that note, let's begin. Let's see what is the next topic that we have. The next topic that we have is recommendations of Vijay Raghavan panel. Now, please understand, Government of India forms a lot of committees throughout the year. It is one of the favorite time pass of the government whenever they want, whenever people are demanding something, whenever they think that they want to give a job to someone retired, they basically make a committee out of it. So recently, there was a committee formed called the Vijay Raghavan Committee, Vijay Raghavan Panel. This committee was formed to give feedback and suggest changes in the working of the DRDO. Now, before I go ahead and discuss what did the committee say, what happened there, I want to give you a very interesting point of view about why so many committees are formed. Please try and understand this. And again, I am not putting any allegation on anyone, but I'm just telling you how the government committees work. So, in Indian polity, you would have read when the judges retire, the judges cannot get any other government job, right? They usually either get governorship of a certain state or maybe they become Rajya Sabha members. But in order to maintain their independence, the judges are not eligible to get a government job after retirement. Now, what happens in this case is the government also wants to have an influence over the judges. On the other hand, the judges also, after retirement, want to work and want to earn more money. See, 65 years as a retirement age of Supreme Court judge was fixed a long time back. Today, anyone 65 years old who is taking care of his or her health is a very active person. Look at Mr. Amitabh Bachchan touching 80, our Prime Minister about to touch 75. Now, imagine if these people would have been asked to retire at 65. That now you are 65, sit at home, solve Sudoku, do nothing else. Now, imagine the life that it would have been. So, there have been a lot of demands that 65 is not really a appropriate age to retire now. For example, in the US, there is no retirement age for judges. Do you know that? In the US, the person in the Supreme Court can work till whatever time, till the end of their life. A lot of judges in the US Supreme Court are over 70, over 75. There are even 80 people in the US Supreme Court. Now, what happens in this case is when the judges retire, they are 65. So, what happens? The government now uses an interesting loophole. The loophole is the government says we cannot give you a government job, but we can make you head of certain committees because we are fond of forming committees. We'll make committee for everything. We'll make committee for simultaneous elections. We'll make committee of whether optional should be removed from UPSC or not. We'll make committee of how to improve the quality of air. We'll do all these things because you see committees being formed for everything. And you will see how is it that almost every committee is headed by a judge. Have you noticed that? Almost every committee is headed by a judge no matter what. So it's no rule that the committee has to head by a judge only. But the reason why the government usually uses the judges for this is an unsaid understanding between the government and the judges. The unsaid understanding is when you retire, we will take care of you. Okay. And now you take care of us. Do you understand this? Let's let me stop at that because I don't want to go to jail. But this is how it usually works, right? We'll take care of you later, you take care of us right now. And this is with all the governments. This is not just one government, this is with all the governments. It has been a very common kind of unsaid rule that since our independence, most of the committees are headed by judges only. Not that they are qualified enough for that, but just because the government uses it. And do you know, and I'll basically continue on that, do you know how much the judges get paid for these committees? When they are part of these committees, they get many times more as compared to salary that they were earning as a judge. When the judges basically are a part of these committee, when they head these committees, they get paid 15-20 lakh per month. You know that, even more in certain cases, just to be a part of that, just to be a head of that committee. And the most interesting part is there is no life of the committee, right? If the government forms a committee saying that, oh, you tell us whether UPSC should have two optionals or one optional, you will say, okay, I'm studying the topic, I'll study for 3 years, do the research, and give you the report that only one optional is good. But for those 3 years, you will get a salary, right? So these committees basically earn a lot of money for the people who are the head of this committee. But again, don't write this in the exam, and even if you do, at least don't write my name. Anyway, let's go ahead then. So what we are discussing is Vijay Raghavan panel. I'm not saying that this is connected in any case, but this is something that you need to know. As an aspirant of the UPSC, you should need know these kind of things. How does it all work at the highest level? See, no law is being broken. There is no law that says the government cannot use judges in the committees. The committee. There is no law that says that judges should not be paid a high amount. So all the laws are being used here. This is just loophole that is being utilized by the judiciary and by the government. That is where it works. Anyways, let's go ahead. So recently a committee was formed called the Vijay Raghavan panel. They gave recommendations on the working of the DRDO. Now, the DRDO stands for Defense Research and Development Organization. I'm sure all of you would have at least heard the name of DRDO at least once. Most of you would know what does it do. In case you don't know what does it do, let me give you a very brief idea about what exactly does it do. So they are the ones that undertake research regarding defense. For I'll give you a very simple example. Okay, a very simple example. So let's imagine there is a soldier who is right now working in Jaisalmer, posted in Jaisalmer at the border, and that soldier is being transferred to Siachen. Now imagine the life of that soldier. He was in Jaisalmer where the temperature was 50 degree, 55 degrees Celsius. He is being transferred to Siachen where the temperature can go up to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Now, how would the person acclimatize to that situation? This is where DRDO comes in. For example, our normal gloves, normal shoes, and socks will not work in Siachen. You require special clothing, special gloves, special boots, special goggles. So, who makes all of that? DRDO does all that research. DRDO will help you with all that research to make sure the soldiers are prepared enough for that situation. Not just that, this is a very basic example. They also do research on missiles, they also do research on drone technology, they also do research anything related to defense, basically. Anything related to defense, they will do all that research. They don't go into production as such. They, after the research is done, then they will basically get tell the result to the government. Either they themselves will manufacture, or the technology will be given to some other company to manufacture. So this is mainly the job of the DRDO, to undertake research and development in areas related to defense. Recently, the Parliamentary Standing Committee was formed, which talked about the fact that DRDO is delaying a lot of projects, which is true. See, in India, if you look at public sector enterprises, and this is a sad reality, but most of the public sector enterprises are running behind schedule only. Look at DRDO, HAL, all of these are running way behind schedule. And a prime example of this is the Tejas. Tejas aircraft is a prime example of how any project is delayed to such a large extent that when it actually comes or becomes a reality, it is so delayed that there is no use of it. For example, do you know who was the prime minister when the idea of having a Tejas aircraft made in India? was first ideated? Any idea who was the prime minister when the idea that we should have a aircraft made in India called Tejas? It was it was Indira Gandhi. It was Indira Gandhi who, at whose time the idea first came up that we should have our own fighter aircraft made in India. Now imagine, at the time of Indira Gandhi, the idea came up, and by the time the Tejas became a reality, we had Dr. Manmohan Singh as the prime minister. Now, can you imagine the time period in between? Now, the problem here is, let's imagine I tell you I want to eat a pizza tonight. Let's place an order. And that order comes in when 30 years have passed on. Your kids will get the order that your father wanted to eat that pizza. This is your pizza. How would you feel if you place an order for something that you wanted to have 30 years back and today you got that? Wouldn't you feel a bit cheated? It will be outdated. That is a big problem with Tejas. The problem with Tejas is by the time it became a reality, it was already outdated. It was already outdated. By the time the Tejas was made in the international market, there were aircrafts much better than this, much lighter than this, much more technology. And when Tejas was made, Indian Navy said, no, we will not buy it. Now, please understand how do these things work. Just because DRDO has made the aircraft doesn't mean the Navy Air Force have to buy it. They will say, no, we don't like it. We will buy it from some other country. Those who don't know Tejas is fighter aircraft made in India, manufactured in India by HAL. That is what Tejas is. Now, just imagine this: an idea that we should have this aircraft made in India so that our forces don't have to depend on someone else. It was made in India after so many years, so many decades, and the armed forces say, no, we don't like it. We'll buy it from outside anyways. That is a big example of the problem that we have in the working of the HAL and DRDO. Nikhil is saying, then why are they buying it now? Because Nikhil, then again there were other variants of Tejas that were introduced. The first variant of Tejas that was introduced, the armed forces said we will not buy it because he understand the Navy's point of view. Navy usually operates the aircraft from the aircraft carriers, right? You have these huge aircraft carrier where you have to land these aircraft. On those aircraft carriers, you need very light aircraft. If you increase the weight of the aircraft on the aircraft carrier, then it will create problems. So again, armed forces want the best of the stuff, and that was something that the DRDO or HAL could not really come up with. Anyways, a lot of questions on why was there such a delay. See, understand how the government processes work. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved. Change in the government matters a lot. Bureaucrats get transferred time and time again. Let's imagine a situation. Okay, let's imagine a real life situation. Let's say that DRDO was working on making this Tejas aircraft. Okay, they spent 50 crore rupees to experiment on a new radar, and the experiment failed. Okay, so they would go to government again and they will say, can you give me 50 crore rupees more? Government will say, why? They will say, oh, the last money that we spent on radars, it did not work well, so we have to experiment again. Now the government is in a situation where they don't have that money. With that 50 crore rupees, they can either give food to the poor people, or they can give this to have a new experiment, which again they don't know will succeed or not. So understand, this is where the delays happen. The government will say, oh, come back after 1 year, then I'll think about it. That's how the delays usually happen. So there are bureaucratic hurdles, there are permissions, there is the working of the government, there is a crunch delay, etc. All of that leads to these problems. Anyways, let's come to what this panel said. What was the panel? What did the Vijay Raghavan panel suggest about the DRDO? First, focus on only research and development. Don't focus on production. Don't focus on anything else. Just do your experiment. Once you are sure how to make this product, give it to HAL or give it to other companies, private sector, etc. They will manufacture. You don't focus on production. You only do your research. Act as a lab. Act as a research organization, not as a producer, not as a factory. Second recommendation: have narrow focus. Means focus specifically on a few things. See, DRDO, etc., if you actually see, these are the companies that don't have a lot of employees. They require state of the art engineering. They have to focus on a few things which they think are the need right now. Just imagine something. A lot of times, and I'll give you again a very simple example. Uh, a lot of times, let's say, and you want to eat pani puri. Now, pani puri is known by different names in different places. Golgappa somewhere puchka or whatever. But you get the idea, right? You get the idea. Let's say you want to eat pani puri. Now, what are the options that you have? One option that you have is you go outside, get the pani puri, whatever, and then come back. Second option that your moms will suggest, let's make it at home, right? Now, how do you make it at home? You prepare everything, the batter, and then fry it, and then prepare everything else. Now, the problem here is just to have 8 or 10 pani puris, do you want to do all of that at home? Would you be interested in getting all that ingredient and then spend all that time? No, in most of the cases, you will just go outside, eat it, and come back. This is exactly the same thing that's happening here. As per the recommendation of the panel, the DRDO should not try and make everything within India. There are some things that are cheaper to just buy from outside. There are some things which are now available at a cheaper price outside India. Some countries that have mastered it. Let's just go and buy it from there. Why to make everything and focus on everything? Focus only on the technologies which are the need of the hour for India. The panel said that don't focus on drone development, etc. There are drones that are available at a very cheap price now around the entire world. You can buy drones from many countries now. They are available to you. So why do you have to spend all that money in research? Let's focus on what exactly is the need of the hour. Focus, for example, on building the next fighter jet. That is something that we would require, the next generation fighter jet. Don't focus on drones, etc. We can get it from outside. Next recommendation, have a defense technology council and empower it to have partnerships with the private sector as well. So there is a defense technology council headed by the prime minister. They are the ones who basically design what is the next thing that we have to focus on. They are the ones who give orders to the DRDO that now focus on this, now focus on that, we require this and that, etc. This Defense Technology Council should interact with the private sector as well and make sure that they also get as much help as required from the government. The panel said that we should also have Department of Defense Science, Technology, Innovation under the Ministry of Defense. They should ensure that the private sectors are also allowed in this. Now, the times are changing. In the past few years, the government has opened up defense production to private sector as well. There are private companies that are working in the field of defense. There is a company by Tata, there's a company by Mahindra now. Reliance also has a company that makes weapons now. So yes, things are changing, but even now we are slightly, as I would say, uh, not as advanced as some of the other countries. For example, look at the US. Most of the big fighter jets, the state of the art missiles made in the US are actually made by private companies. They're not government owned. They have government contracts, but they're made by private companies because they have been given so much support by the government in the form of incentives, tax break, etc. Something like this needs to happen in our case as well. The government has to ensure that the private sector is incentivized to come up and invest in these projects. The RDO should also stick to their timelines and avoid cost overrun. Cost overrun means basically getting the cost much higher as compared to what was planned. Tejas is a prime example. For example, if the DRDO today says that we can make this in 100 crore, when you delay something, the cost increases. Why? Because you have to pay more salary to the people. Inflation kicks in. So when you delay a certain project, it will always become much costlier. It will end up being a 300 crore project. That is something that needs to be avoided. Tejas is a prime example which took over 30 years to develop. Also, DRDO has to be in sync with the armed forces. As I gave you the example of Tejas, By the time it was made, the Navy said we don't like it. Then the government stepped in. Government asked the Navy to compromise. Navy said, okay, we want some changes to be done. But the DRDO, while they are in the research process, they must always be in touch with the armed forces about what their requirement is. If there is any feature specifically that the armed forces like, all these are recommendations of the panel that the DRDO must do in order to revive itself. They also should focus on technology transfer and private sector integration. Technology transfer is something that the government also focuses on quite a lot. You would have remembered this, or you would have noticed this. When the government of India now buys any new weapon from, let's say, France or Russia, we want technology transfer. Technology transfer means we want them to tell us how did they make it, so that in the future we can make it ourselves. Similarly, DRDO must do the same with private sector as well. Take their technology and share our technology with them as well for faster deployment. And in the end, with all, like all government department, they should be more open, they should be more transparent, so that the people have more trust in the working of the DRDO going forward. These were the suggestions that the panel gave. Apart from that, here are certain other suggestions that were not in the panel. These are certain other suggestions that were not really in the panel from outside. There has to be better project management, there has to be more collaboration, technology transfer, similar kind of things that the panel had suggested. Now, this kind of a panel, the report that they give, it is important for you because it can be asked in the mains exam, even when it is not asked in the mains exam directly. If there's a question about India's defense manufacturing, if there's a question about India's dependence on other countries for defense equipment, you can always quote these panel and their recommendations. So please do remember, there is a very low chance that the UPSC will directly ask you, what did the Vijay Raghavan panel say? The question would rather be about defense manufacturing. The question would rather be about India's defense import, etc., where you can give an example of the Vijay Raghavan panel. So please do remember these recommendations. These are extremely important going forward. On that note, let's see if you can answer this. Mega, there can be a question on DRDO's working. You can't deny that, but there's a little chance because the UPSC does not ask about the working of a specific department of the government. Usually they do not. Your time has started. And time is up. Only 29%. Expected better, guys. This is American anti-missile system. Why is it that you should know this, or you should have known this? All of you know about the S-400 missile defense system. All of you have heard of it. I'm sure all of you have heard of the S-400 missile defense system. What is this? It is a Russian missile defense system that India has bought. So when India was buying this, India had two options: one, to buy this, or to buy this third system from America. So this is a similar kind of a system. S-400 is again Russian made, it's a Russian system. The third system does a similar kind of a job. It is made by US. America wanted India to buy that. What does it do? It's a missile defense system. So basically, if there's a missile coming in, it will detect it and it will shoot down that missile. Just like you saw in Mahabharat, there was a there was an arrow coming from here, and an arrow was shot down from here in Mahabharat. They will collide and they will be lighting here, something like that. That is what S-400 and the third missile will do basically. Incoming missile will be stopped, and one more missile will be shot from here. Similar to that, just don't write that in the exam. As long as you understood what does this, our job is done. Anyways, A few questions have come in quickly. I'll take those up before I go ahead. Sri Lakshmi has a question. Doesn't Parliament decide upon the salary allowances of such panel members? Had any private member been introduced any bill against such extravagant salaries and delay in decision making? Sri Lakshmi, number one, the government, no, the Parliament does not decide on these salaries. These are executive expenses that the government decides on their own. Second, the question was, has any private member bill been introduced for this right now? No, no private member bill specifically has been introduced for it so far, because again there is no law about this. If there would have been a law that this is the ceiling under which you have to pay, then fine, but right now there is no law about it. And again, you can't expect the ruling party to make these kind of laws, because everyone in power behaves the same way. Please understand this. And this is not just with politics, it is true with almost everything. Everyone in power behaves the same way. When you are powerless, you will be very different. I'll give you a very simple example. When you don't have money, you will always say, "Oh, the rich people do this. They save their taxes. They don't pay taxes to the government. When I will become rich, I will be different." No, when you will become rich, you will be the same way. Everyone in power behaves the same way. So you can't really expect that once the political party in power changes, they will introduce this kind of a bill to put a salary cap. No, no one will do that. Then there's a question from Kishan. Why public sector has such a bureaucratic mindset? Is it because the system reinforced like policy paralysis happened after 2G scam and stuff? So Kishan, there are various reasons behind it. One of them, as you said. So basically, let's look at these reasons. Why is there a policy paralysis? Number one, the issue is bureaucracy is not just one person. So when you say that I will enter the bureaucracy, I will change everything, please remember, one single person changing everything is not really possible unless you are in a movie, etc. So it's a system and it requires a lot of people to have the same kind of ideology. Secondly, what you have to understand is people want to play safe. I'll give you an example which I've given earlier as well, and I'll give you that example once again. uh, there are a lot of bureaucrats right now who have retired, but they are still going to court time and time again because a case was filed against them because of a decision they might have taken earlier, which at that time was a good decision, but now people have filed RTIs and questions are being asked. I'll give you a simple example, and this is a real example. So when we had COVID-19 crisis, India imported oxygen concentrators, etc., from various countries. So what happened was these oxygen concentrators basically came in, landed at the Delhi airport. Thousands of these were kept, but they were not taken out of the airport for 2 or 3 days. They were not supplied to the hospitals. Why? Because the paperwork was not complete. You can't just import something. You have to do entire paperwork. You have to get it passed through customs, etc. Now there was a lot of discussion, a lot of criticism that bureaucracy is not doing this. Bureaucracy is happy to let the people die, but they can't do this. People said that they should allow the oxygen concentrators to go to the hospital first and do the paperwork later on. But now think of it from the point of view of an IAS officer who is responsible for this. The IAS officer knows that today, if he allows these oxygen concentrators to enter India without paper, people will be happy. But after everything is fine, after 10 years, some person will file an RTI, ask who was the IAS officer who broke the law, who allowed these oxygen concentrators to come in, and a case will be filed against the officer. Now, that poor officer, even after retirement, would have to go to court time and time again just to justify his decision. And this does happen. It's not a made up fake story. It does happen. So that is why people in bureaucracy behave the way that they do. There are different kind of people in every profession, but that is the kind of fear that is instilled in them, unfortunately. Then there's a question on from Sham. How is it justified that retired judges not having enough experience in specific area appointed as the head of the committee? Sham, I can't justify this, so I don't want to defend the government's argument. So no, I can't justify. Maybe ask this question to the government next time when the elections are here. When someone comes to ask you for vote, ask them this question. See what the response is. Tell them I will only vote for you if you reduce the expense of the committees. Maybe they will give you an answer. I can't give you an answer because I don't have any justification for that. Anyway, let's go ahead then. Next topic that we have is post traumatic stress disorder, called PTSD in simple language, and cerebellum. There is a connection between the two. So there was a recent report in Down to Earth. Those who have not heard, Down to Earth is a very important website and a magazine. It publishes articles about science, environment, very important articles. You will see questions from these topics time and time again in the UPSC. So there was a report in Down to Earth which says that W or PTSD reduces cerebellum volume. Let's try and understand this. Don't worry, we'll take it very easy and slow. PTSD. What is PTSD? Post traumatic stress disorder. So, if, and you would have seen this either in real life or in movies as well, when someone goes through a very traumatic experience, let's say someone had a very bad accident but survived. Let's say someone saw someone being killed but survived. Someone saw someone was in a train accident, or someone was in a building that was burned but escaped. After such a harrowing experience, it leaves an impact on your mind. You might go back to those images, you might have those memories again. This is called PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. For example, in that tunnel in Uttarakhand, so many workers were trapped for so many days. After they came out, maybe some of them had some issues. They were not able to think properly. Maybe they were not normal. This is called PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. After a stressful experience, you might have some issues, you might have some trauma. Now, there's a study that has proven that it has a direct impact on your brain. So, your brain has different parts. I'll just show you those. We'll come back to this in just a bit. See this. See, so this is how your brain looks like. Means not the colors, your brain, it does not look like purple or orange color, but yeah, this is how the different parts of the brains look like. So basically, if you look at these parts of the brain, look at this part. This is called the cerebellum. This is called the cerebellum. Have you noticed when we were kids, someone if someone used to come and basically tap you behind this, behind your at the back of your skull, some people get very irritated. Your parents would say, no, no, don't hit him here. This is where the small brain is. Have you heard that? That please don't hit here. Please don't basically have an impact here. This was true. It's not that they were lying. They might not have known the scientific idea behind it, but they were true. It's not that they were lying. So this part that is basically behind your skull at the back portion, this is called the cerebellum. This is called the cerebellum. So this cerebellum basically is responsible for a lot of functions. And the health of the cerebellum is extremely important for your functioning, for if you're able to walk properly, if you're able to control your gestures, etc. or not. So now the study has found out that a person, when he or she goes through that stressful time through a trauma, there is a direct negative impact on the cerebellum. This is the entire idea, that in the cerebellum, the cells get damaged when a person goes through this. That is what the entire research is all about. That is, reduces the cerebellum volume, that the number of cells that exist in the cerebellum start to decrease when the person goes through PTSD. Now, what does the study say in detail, one by one? It says that PTSD is linked with reduction in gray and white volume inside the cerebellum. The brain has, as you know, different part. The brain has different regions, as we discussed, or as I just showed you on the photo. The most important part is the cerebellum. This is what is impacted by the post traumatic or post trauma stress disorder. Earlier it was believed that PTSD only impacts the emotional well-being of the person. Before this study came out, everyone thought if someone has gone through any traumatic experience, it will only have an emotional problem, or it will only have an emotional impact. But now it has been found out that not just emotional, the person may have a physical impact, because the cerebellum of the brain that controls our motion, that controls many things, may be impacted. So PTSD now is no longer just an emotional issue, it can be a neurological and a physical issue as well. That is what the study has mainly found out. So this PTSD is a mental health condition, as I said. when a person goes through a very bad, usually a violent experience or a natural disaster, but survives, when the person gets flashback, nightmares, etc., they can't sleep properly, they won't be able to talk properly. That is called a situation that is PTSD. It is usually treated with medication, and you get a lot of counseling. You go and talk to a psychotherapist, they will help you out. In many conditions, in many cases, the people do get back to normal, but in many cases they don't really get back to normal because it has had an impact on their brain. Now these are usually the different parts of the brain that we have. First, cerebellum, as we were talking about, the most important part. This is the part that is associated with motor control. Now what do you mean by motor control? Let's try and understand this. Let's say your stove or your gas is on and there is a utensil over it. By mistake you touch it. As soon as you touch it, you basically snatch your hand back, right? That's what you do. How does it function? How is it that as soon as you touch something hot, you snap back within a moment? Because your brain sends that signal. Your brain tells you that now this is very dangerous for you, you have to snatch your hand back. Or, for example, when you are sitting, you want to get up, you don't think about it, right? You have to get up, you get up, but it is working inside your body. Your brain is sending the signal that it is time to get up, so you basically use your muscles in the legs and you get up. All that is done because of the cerebellum, because of the motor control. That is why it's such an important part of the brain. We also have something called cerebrum. I'll show you the photo once again. So cerebrum is this, the large part or the largest part of the brain is called the cerebrum. This one, cerebrum basically is the largest part. It controls your precise movement, reasoning, speech, emotions, etc. The way you speak, are you able to respond, are you able to think, etc., or not? That is controlled by cerebellum. Then we have the brain stem. Brain stem connects cerebrum and the spinal cord. It helps us in our maintaining our heartbeat, etc. It helps us in a lot of reflex action like sneezing, coughing, etc. All these are different parts of the brain, but again, the most important part for us right now is the cerebellum. This is what is impacted, especially when a person goes through the situation of PTSD. This is a kind of question that you might expect from this part. Basic biology question. This is different parts of the brain, different functions, nothing more. You see, when you read science in GS3 paper, there are two types of science basically. There is one which is called general science, and there is one which is called science and technology. So the science and technology part, this is where most of the questions are asked. So it has what? It has, for example, defense, space, biotechnology. These are the kind of questions that you usually see in the science and tech part. This is mostly current affair based. This is mostly based on current affairs. Then there is general science. General science basically means questions from bio, physics, chemistry. Now, these general science questions are very rare to ask, but they may be asked one or two. There may be one or two questions that may be asked once in a while, but they are usually lower in probability. Many people don't even read it. For covering general science, you're expected to cover ninth and 10th NCRTs. As long as you are good enough in 9th and 10th NCRT, you should be able to answer general science questions. A lot of people, especially who are not from science background, they skip this part and they don't read it. They are lucky if they don't get a question, but sometimes you do get one or two questions from this. But if I have to make a division, 80% questions from science will be from science and technology part only. Only very few questions, one or two at max, will be from the general science part. So again, if you have to, and again, as a teacher, I can never suggest you to skip something. I would always tell you to have a coverage of it. But yes, if you are finding it very hard, There are some people who are averse to certain subjects. So if you're finding science as a subject hard, I would advise you, don't skip the science and technology part. At least focus on the current affairs related to defense, space, etc. You'll get most of the questions from here. Biotechnology, development in AI, etc. And then general science can take a back seat, but ideally you should cover that as well. These are again the questions that you get, especially from NCRT, from the general science part. Usually you don't get this question, but most of the questions, because will be focused on science and technology part. Anyways, let's go ahead. The next topic that we have here is green hydrogen. Now, green hydrogen is something that has been in the news quite a lot, not just in India, but around the world. The world is focusing on green hydrogen. They have a lot of hope from green hydrogen. They think it can be a fuel for the future, it can be a clean fuel. The reason why we are discussing this, the World Economic Forum published a report. The title of the report is this: Green Hydrogen Enabling Measures Roadmap for Adoption in India. So that was a report published by the World Economic Forum, where they talked about how green hydrogen is important, especially for India. And this is what we will be discussing here. Just a second. Sorry. Now, again, this is what the World Economic Forum said, that India has to take the center stage when it comes to green hydrogen. Now, first, let me tell you what exactly is green hydrogen. For those of you who don't understand, hydrogen has the capability of being used as a fuel. The way in which hydrogen is produced determines what will be the name given to hydrogen. For example, there is gray hydrogen, there is green hydrogen, there is blue hydrogen. So there are different types of hydrogen. They are only different in the way that they are produced. Green hydrogen basically means when you produce hydrogen without polluting the environment, without having any CO2 emission. When you produce hydrogen, that is called green hydrogen. How do you do that? Basically, you break out water, as simple as that. So take some water in your hand, try to break it, see if you can. If you can, great, you just produce green hydrogen. If you did not, then that's what the scientists are trying to do. So this is called green hydrogen in simple terms. Tomorrow, when you're taking a shower, or boys who don't take shower every day, whenever you're taking a shower, try and basically break the water, and you'll be able to see how basically green hydrogen usually works. Anyways, so basically green hydrogen is something that is being seen as a fuel of the future, because number one, no emissions. Number two, we can make a lot out of water. Its water is available in over 70% of the earth's surface, so we can take out water and we can produce it as much as we want. But the problem is, as I said, it's not that easy. You can't just break it with your hand. You have to pass it through a process called electrolysis, and that is how water is broken up. Anyway, so what is happening right now, India and other countries around the world are trying to produce green hydrogen as much as possible. The problem is, whenever a new technology comes in, and this is true with every technology, when a new technology comes in, the cost of that technology will always be much higher as compared to when it is older. For example, I'll give you an example. I remember when I was a kid, I think seventh, eighth class, something like that, someone in, or a friend of our family basically went to Singapore and they bought a laptop. It was the first laptop in our entire city. And they were saying that I bought this laptop for 1 lakh rupees. And I still remember it was very dumb laptop, nothing really, had a keyboard, had a screen, but nothing more than that. But we were so amazed by it. For 1 lakh rupees, you got such a laptop. And now again, you see the cost at which the laptops are being sold. So again, when the technology becomes easier to approach, when the technology becomes more accessible, when there's more research on it, the prices come down. Take an example of solar. About 7 8 years back, when we were thinking of solar energy, solar panels, they were very expensive, very expensive. And there were question marks over who will buy solar energy. But now the prices of solar have come down considerably. They are at par and even cheaper, in fact, as compared to normal hydroelectricity that we have. Similar is the case with green hydrogen right now. Green hydrogen right now is costly to produce, But it is expected that when the scale goes up, it will become more affordable, and we have to wait for that day. Anyway, what does the report say? The report says number one, India's demand for energy is set to increase. No secret, the more children that we produce, it depends upon you. See, you are the next generation. So when if you have a problem with India's population, it's in your hand. So basically, don't blame anyone else now. Everyone else, their time is gone. Now it's upon you. If you have a problem with India's population, you can do something about it. If you don't do something about it, then don't complain about India's population. Anyway, so obviously, as we grow, not just with population, but as we become a more advanced economy, energy consumption will obviously increase. See, it's a very common thing. The more advanced that you are as an economy, look at US, look at European countries, the more energy they will consume. Similar is the case with India, that the more energy or the more advanced that you go, the more energy you will have to consume. In 2022, India's energy import bill was about $185 billion. It will increase even further. Again, our energy bill mostly is of crude oil, gas that we are importing, and we are hoping that we'll be able to replace some of that at least with hydrogen. Also, green hydrogen can help meet India's demands and help achieve our net zero target by 2070. But again, the problem is in the beginning, it is expensive to make green hydrogen. So government has to make sure that they give incentive to those who are willing to invest in green hydrogen technology. Currently, India produces 6.5 million metric tons per annum of green hydrogen right now. Mostly it is used in crude oil, etc. Most of the hydrogen made in India is gray hydrogen. For those who don't understand, let me first show you the difference. I'll come back here. So this is how different hydrogens are. Again, gray hydrogen is hydrogen produced using fossil fuel. All these processes are to make hydrogen only. The only difference is how is it created. Gray hydrogen, how most of our oxygen hydrogen is created right now, it is used making fossil fuel. We want to go to green hydrogen using electrolysis, breaking out water, having our hydrogen separated. That is how we want to have it. So right now, and I'll come back here. Right now, most of our production is gray hydrogen. We want to switch to green hydrogen going ahead. The green hydrogen supply, on the other hand, has some other problems. See, but of the problems with any source of energy is transportation. Please understand this. We are able to get petrol and diesel effectively because they are transported to the petrol pump near you. I hope you know the petrol pump where you go to is not taking out oil from underneath there wherever they are, right? You have these tankers, you have these trucks that supply petrol and they store it underground and they give it to you. Now there is a proper mechanism that has been made, but for supply of green hydrogen, etc., you need to make pipelines that needs a lot of investment. Europe has already started doing that. They have created a big network of pipelines for green hydrogen. India also has to do that. For that, we also have to reduce the cost of producing green hydrogen. Right now, at present, it requires $4 to $5 per kg to produce green hydrogen in India. Now, $4 to $5 is expensive. Let's say about 400 rupees per kg is the cost of green hydrogen production in India. The aim is to get it to at least or maximum 2 rupee or $2 per kg. So maximum, let's say 150, 160 per kg is the aim. Only then we would be able to ask the companies not to use oil but to use green hydrogen, because green hydrogen, etc., will only become a long term reality if you are able to convince the people and the industries to use it, and you can only convince them when you provide it at a much more affordable price. We also have to focus on, as I said, transportation and storage. EU has been doing that. EU has already started building their own pipeline network across the entire continent to transport hydrogen. In India, we are still not being able to do that. Right now, most of the green hydrogen in India is being produced in Assam, for example. For that to be transported to the other parts of the country, you need to have a much better pipeline system that needs a lot of investment, and the government must work on that. There are also issues of state versus state. When one state produces some commodity to transport it to the other state, how would the taxes, etc., work? All these are complications that India should solve in order to make green hydrogen even more accessible. Other suggestion of the report: to support the industries, give them incentive, give them tax break, etc., allow them to transfer towards green hydrogen in the long run by making it more attractive, making it much more suitable and much more affordable for them in the long run. Because see, it is the government's responsibility to ensure that if there is a technology that is expensive in the beginning, but it has a lot of benefits in the long run, it is the government's responsibility to give it the required push. For example, look at electric vehicles. If you buy electric vehicles, it is slightly more expensive than normal vehicle. For example, if you buy, let's say, Tata Nexon, normal Tata Nexon, it might cost you 11, 12 lakh rupees. Electric version of Tata Nexon might cost you 15, 16 lakh rupees. So 4 to 5 lakhs more expensive than the normal one. So to give a push to the people, what did the government do? Government said, okay, we'll take lesser tax from you, we'll take lesser road tax from you, we'll give you income tax rebate also. So when you want people and industries to adopt a new technology which is more expensive, the government has to step in at some cost. The government can also utilize India's export potential. Once we are able to ensure that we have enough production of green hydrogen in India, fuel is something that the world will always require. We can always use our neighborhood, which is extremely populated, to supply it to other countries. Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, all of these, obviously, Myanmar, require energy. So maybe if we can work on this, reduce the cost, have enough infrastructure for transportation, maybe we can even focus on export. All these things are mentioned in this report by the WEF, World Economic Forum, that this should be India's chance to go forward and capture this advantage in the field of green hydrogen. Also, focus on disincentivizing of fossil fuel. Please understand this. There is something called carrot and stick policy. I'm sure all of you have heard of this. Carrot and stick basically means when you want people to go towards a certain area, either you give them incentive if they are moving towards that area, or you punish them if they are not moving to that area. Simple example: if I want all of you to study tomorrow, either I can give you some award if you study tomorrow, or I can give you punishment if you did not study. That's called carrot and stick policy. That means giving incentive or giving punishment as well. A live example, real example in this case in India would be the use of diesel. Now, if you look at India's history, diesel as a fuel is always more polluting as compared to petrol. Diesel was mainly meant for heavy industry use like tractors, trucks, etc. Because the government wanted to give subsidy to farmers, to transporters, government always used to subsidize diesel. That is why you, not right now, but if you go back, ask your parents, diesel was always cheaper than petrol, at least 10-50 rupees liter was the difference. If petrol used to be 50 rupees per kg in the good old times, diesel used to be 35, 36 rupees kg, or 36 rupees liter. Now, this difference was because the government subsidized diesel because they wanted farmers, etc., to use it. But when the government now found out people are buying diesel cars because they like how diesel cars feel, people are buying diesel cars even though they are more expensive. That is when the government realized giving incentive or giving subsidy on diesel doesn't make sense. So what they did was they basically ended the diesel subsidy and now it is almost at par. That is what the government, that is what the WEF wants the government to do. People who are using fossil fuel, etc., should not be given any incentive. They should be asked to go and pay the market price no matter what. This is a snippet from the report itself, which I've taken out. Same information that I gave you is available here as well. These are the suggestions that they gave: bring down the cost of electrolyzer, bring down the cost of production of hydrogen, also increase the demand, by giving a push to industries, making sure that they have incentive to switch to green hydrogen, etc. And these are the different hydrogens. Again, all these form brown hydrogen, gray hydrogen, blue, green. All these are hydrogen only. They are not green color hydrogen. Please understand. The difference is only in the manner that they are produced. Green hydrogen is produced in a manner that there is no carbon dioxide emission, so very clean. Blue hydrogen has lesser carbon dioxide emission. Other two have more carbon dioxide emission. That is the only difference. Okay, let's see if we can answer this question quickly. I'll give you your options. The time has started. Pratik, both hydrogen and oxygen are emitted separately. That's how you capture hydrogen. The problem is not with the fact that they're emitted. As long as they're emitted separately, you can capture hydrogen. 57% people got this right. This is C, all these three. Basically, all the industries, wherever they require machinery to be run, all that can actually use green hydrogen. All these industries, which are very heavy very in energy intensive industries, all of them can use green hydrogen to be used. Palak, brown hydrogen is also making of hydrogen by different process. For example, if you see here, brown hydrogen is when it is produced as a product of industrial process. So when hydrogen is produced in industry, that is called brown hydrogen. Okay, guys, quickly, I have a few questions which you have asked me. They have been given to me. So what we'll do quickly is we have two topics remaining. Let's first finish these two topics, and after that, whoever wants to leave can leave, and whoever has asked me the questions, I will take those questions after the end of two topics. Okay, fair enough. So we'll first finish those topics so that after that, if you want to leave, you can, and then the question that have been given to me, I'll focus on that. Okay. Next, antimicrobial resistance. Now, unfortunately, this is a topic which comes in the news time and time again, extremely sensitive topic, something that we have to be aware of. The idea is very simple. In India, especially, you can get almost any medicine just by going to the medical store and telling your friendly chemist, I want this. He or she will be happy to give that medicine over to you. That is not how it works in other parts of the world, and that is not how it should work. Ideally, you should not be able to buy antibiotic just over the counter. Over the counter medicines are only few, like paracetamol, etc., Vicks, all of these, but you should not be able to buy any medicine that you want. But unfortunately, that is the case in India. The result is, no matter what happens to you, the first reaction in India is, let's have an antibiotic. We think antibiotic is the cure for everything. Every household has that one medicine box. In that medicine box, you will have some half cut strips of medicine. Someone fell in your family, you bought an entire strip, they consumed 5 tablets, other 5 are just kept there. So you basically open up that box and see which medicine do you want to have, right? Next option that we have is, you call your friend or relative and you ask him, bro, when you had fever, which medicine did you take? And he'll give you a name and you will be like, yeah, this is the right medicine. Because we know doctors who spend 5.5 years doing MBBS, what are they? They are fools. We know everything. So either we have that particular box or we have that friend. And in the end, we always have Google. Ask Google which medicine, ask Google what are your symptoms. Any symptom that you input in Google, in the end, it will tell you you have cancer and you are about to die. So, anyways, the last option that we have is we go to doctors. That is something that we usually avoid at any single cost. The result is, at the end of the day, the result is we consume too many medicines, too many antibiotics. What happens because of that? So, understand this. There are some diseases that are caused by a virus. For example, you have viral fever, okay? Now, viral fever, the name itself says it is because of virus. No matter how many antibiotics you eat, it will not do anything, because antibiotics by name is to kill bacteria and not virus. So for viruses need antiviral medicines. But again, the amount of knowledge in India about that is extremely low, which is leading to a problem called antimicrobial resistance. So what happens? What happens is, when we keep on consuming medicines, when our body does not require it, what happens is the germs inside our body, they develop resistance to that medicine. So they become used to that medicine. And when you really require that medicine to work, when you are ill, your germs, your parasites in your body will be able to defeat that medicine very easily. That is a situation called antimicrobial resistance. Means your body becomes resistant, your germs in your body, bacteria, virus, become resistant to that medicine. Even if the medicine comes into your body, they will be like, oh, he takes it every day, this is our food, no worries, we will not be affected by it. That is called antimicrobial resistant. Now the problem here is, when you really fall ill and you want that medicine to work, it will not work on you, because your body has gotten so used to it. Your body does not react, or the viruses in your body, the bacteria in your body will not react to that medicine in a way that you want. For example, when someone is suffering from TB, tuberculosis, there are so many people right now in the world on whose body the tuberculosis drug will just not work, because they have become resistant to it. They are suffering from drug resistant tuberculosis. Drug resistant means the normal first line of defense is not even working. Now, the what is the problem here? The problem here is, we do have higher level of antibiotics available, but to develop a higher level of antibiotic, do you know it takes 20, 30 years? Only after 20, 30 years of research are you able to develop a higher level of antibiotic. There are people in the world right now which have become resistant to all kind of antibiotics available in the world, because their bodies have gotten so used to eating those medicines. That is a big problem. Now in this survey, it has been found out that 55% patients were given antibiotics just to prevent infection. Means they were not infected. If you're not infected, what will antibiotic do? Nothing. Only 45% people were given antibiotic to treat the infections. Now this is again a sign, that means that you are in a situation where the doctor thinks that preventing you from a disease is a good idea just by giving you antibiotics no matter what. This is when it becomes problematic. uh, there's someone who's asking me the full form of this report. So this is a report by NCDC, or NCDC survey. So let me tell you what is NCDC. It is National Center for Disease Control. National Center for Disease Control. This is the NCDC survey that has come out. Not just this, even more problematic thing is that in this survey, only 6% patients which were given antibiotics had a confirmed case of bacteria. Just imagine, only 6% people out of all the people given antibiotic actually had bacteria infection. Remaining 94, what's the point? Have antibiotic, let's see. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, no worries. We have that box in our home. We'll do something else. Only 6% people actually required that antibiotic. The survey also found out that again, most of the patients were not even detected by the bacterial disease. That is a prerequisite to give you antibiotic. Different hospitals work in a different manner. I'll give you an example. Uh, and this is a real example. So in UK, the healthcare is entirely free of cost. In India also, it's free of cost if you go to a government hospital. So in UK also, if you go to a government hospital, it's entirely free of cost. The difference is their government hospitals are much better. So I'll give you a real example. So my elder brother lives in UK. He had a fracture, uh, doing something, fracture in the hand. He went to doctor, got everything done. There was a plaster done, etc. And then he asked, "Is there any medicine that you want me to eat?" And they said, "No. Why do you need a medicine? The body will heal itself. Why do you need a medicine?" In India, and he was not given any medicine. He was just given the fracture. 3 weeks passed by. He was fine. Absolutely zero medicines. In India, if you go to a doctor because you sneeze or because you had a fracture, you will get at least five medicines of different types. Have an anti-allergic, have a medicine that will help you digest the other medicines, have a medicine that will improve the taste of your mouth, have a syrup because you will not be able to understand what's happening with your body, so on and so forth. So again, it's a generic tendency in India. You can call it a tendency to play safe, but the problem is you do end up having much more medicine that you require in India. And that is what develops our antimicrobial resistance in India. Again, it's in simple terms to define this, it is a resistance acquired by microorganisms inside our body against any drug that you consume. And while medicines or consuming medicine is the most probable way of having antimicrobial resistance, there is one more way in which people can get antimicrobial resistant. That is when you consume meat. So what happens is when you consume meat, let's say you eat chicken or meat of any kind, when you go and buy it from the market, it is sold per kg. So please understand, if someone is selling chicken, for them, it is better that their chicken is heavier, right? If you buy a chicken whose weight is half kg, they will get paid a lower price. If you buy a chicken whose weight is 2 kg, they will be paid a bigger or better price. Simple. So what these people do is they keep on giving antibiotic injections to these animals, chicken or different types of meat, etc., so that they are much bigger in size as compared to what they should be. They get a better price for that. So while consuming that animal product or meat, your body is also taking that antibiotic that was given to the animal. That also becomes problematic. So again, it's not just the medicines that you consume directly, but even the products that you're eating as food, they were given that antibiotic, and in turn your body also gets that antibiotic. That becomes a problem. And this is why we have a problem of super bugs right now. Super bugs means those microorganisms that have developed resistance to most of the medicines that are available, and you would not be able to treat that. That's a situation which is called antimicrobial resistance. What are the reasons that we have high antimicrobial resistance in India? One, we have a lot of communicable diseases in India. Because of these communicable diseases, you are required to eat a lot of medicines in India. We have very high cases of tuberculosis, for example, very high cases of diarrhea in India. So you require a lot of medicines for your treatment. The public health system is overburdened. As I said, in India also, on paper, you do have free healthcare as long as you go to a government hospital. But you all know, given a chance, you would not like to go to a government hospital because you know the process is very difficult. There's a long line, there's a long waiting period. People prefer just consuming the medicine themselves. That becomes a big problem. Hygiene practices are not up to the mark. Doctors under pressure from the patients, because again, if you go to a doctor with a fractured hand and the doctor says you don't need any medicine, what will you do? You will go to the next doctor because you think, oh, this doctor doesn't know anything. Let me go to a doctor who will give me 10 medicines, right? Because that's how patients also behave. A lot of times it is under the pressure of the patient that the doctor has to give you more medicines. That becomes a problem. Lack of awareness, not rules not being followed properly. As I said, these medicines are not made to be just bought over the counter. The government has made laws about it, but in India, at most of the places, you can just go to a medical store and they will be able to, and happily they will give you the medicine that you ask them without showing them any paper, because they don't really have any thoughts about what you are suffering from. The government of India has launched certain programs to fight against antimicrobial resistance. We have something called National Program for Antimicrobial Resistance, started about 12 years back in 2012. We also have National Action Plan. We also have Surveillance Project. I would give you a small homework. Try and read about Red Line Campaign. Red Line Campaign. Just read about it a couple of minutes. It's interesting. It's again a initiative by the government to make sure you are not readily able to buy medicines. Read about this, a Red Line Campaign. It's a important and interesting thing that the government had started a few years back. Not very successful, but something the government did start. Anyways, let's see if we can answer this question. Read it carefully. Your time starts now. Now, 34% people got this right. This is B. Only 2 and 3 are correct. So, antimicrobial resistance or drug resistance does not happen because of your genetic behavior. It's not a disease that gets passed on from genetics. No. It is also not got to do with diseases that you have. Antimicrobial resistance is not because you developed a certain disease. It's not because your genes were like that. It's because of taking a lot of antibiotics and using antibiotics in the animals, etc., that you consume. Let's go ahead with the last topic for the day, and after that, I'll give you a few minutes to ask your questions. The last topic for the day is Peregrine Mission 1. Not very important. The reason is it's a failed mission now. If it was a successful mission, I would have asked you to read in more detail. It's a failed mission. So basically, it's a mission by US, and the mission was they wanted to send us to moon and land it, but it failed. So they did not land it. They just had it orbit for some time and they basically brought it back to Earth. It got destroyed in the Earth atmosphere. So it's a failed mission now. Only thing that you have to remember the name of the mission and the country, US, but it is not a NASA mission. Please don't be confused. It's from US, but from private industry and not from NASA. So it was a private company's mission to land on moon once again after many years, but it failed. America last landed on moon about 50 years back. They have not been interested in moon ever since that. Now, a private company called Astrobotic Technology and United Launch Alliance was undertaking this mission, but again, this mission has failed. Please understand this mission has failed, so that is why you don't need to go into a lot of detail of this. Just remember the name. Just remember it's related to the moon landing. They tried to do it, but they failed, unfortunately. NASA has been working with them, giving them as much support as possible, but this mission specifically was of a private company. Now, as you know, the US was able to land people on the moon earlier. Just that ever since the Apollo mission that was successful, the US has not been working or has not been focusing a lot on sending people to the moon. But now, NASA is again working on a project to send people once again to the moon. That will happen a few years from now. NASA is working on a project called the Artemis mission. Under this mission, astronauts will be sent to moon once again. And now the point is that they will send the first women to moon as a part of this project. Artemis is a name that is given to the goddess of the moon as per the Greek mythology. They want to land a woman and a person of color. Person of color means a black person also. They want to land on the moon for the first time. That is something that the NASA is trying to do in the coming years. One last question regarding this. Let's answer this and then I'll take up your questions. Read this carefully. Alfia Singh, was the first moon landing real? Alfia, don't worry. UPSC will not ask you was it real or not. See, saying it was real is boring. So if you don't want boring, let's say it was a conspiracy theory. But if you want it to be boring, then yes, it was real. The choice is yours. Let me give you your options. The time has started. Okay, Ilma, noted. No, Mumtaz, Dolo and paracetamol are not antibiotics. Megha, my name is Harshmeet Singh. And your time is up. 39% people got this right. The answer here is C. Second is wrong. India was not the second country to have a mission orbiting after US. It was actually the fourth country and first in Asia. So we were first in Asia. We were fourth overall, but first in Asia. First and third are correct. We were the first one to do it in the first attempt, and it was a Mars orbit mission. The answer here is C. Whew. All right, then. This brings us to the end of the webinar. Let's quickly have a look at the leaderboard, and then I'll take up some of the questions that you have asked. This. Just a second. Okay, the leaderboard is right in front of you. There are 4 people who answered 6 questions correctly, all 6. Megha, Vedshri, Devsmita, and Yashika. Brilliant job, guys. Guys, you also need to start studying. You can't only have girls at the top. Then there are a few people who answered 5 questions correctly. Good job. Himanshu, Muskan, Nazla, Sejal, Kennedy, Manu, Siddharth, Jyoti, Shilakshmi, Sanna, Abhishek, Eshani, Tina, Gauri, Aniket, and Nikhil. Good job, guys. Let me quickly take up some of the questions that you have asked. If you don't have any questions, in that case, you're free to leave. And in that case, a very good night from my side. Yes, those who don't have any questions are free to leave. Abhishek is saying, is it necessary to read all types of hydrogen? Abhishek, you should just know what are different types of hydrogen. Read green hydrogen in detail, others not in detail. Then a question is summarize the green hydrogen report once again at last. Green hydrogen report basically talks about how the government of India needs to focus on green hydrogen, needs to reduce the cost of production, needs to push the industries to use green hydrogen by giving them subsidy and incentive. That is what this report is all about. Then, Rishika is saying, do plant-based products also have antibiotics? They may, because it all depends on the farmer, the person who's cultivating it. There's no 100% guarantee it will not have any antibiotics. Sujay saying, even antibiotic courses are not completed by patients. What to do there? Sujay, see, you can't go at people's place and tell them to complete their antibiotic course. So you can focus on yourself. But yes, people do have this unfortunate tendency. If the doctor has given them medicine for 5 days, they start feeling good for after 2 or 3 days, they don't consume that medicine. It's a bad practice, but nothing that you and me can do about it right now. Sujay is saying, to give antibiotics, we need culture and sensitivity report. It is costly for every patient. What is the way forward? Sujay, see, again, the way forward cannot be that you just give it the medicine just because you think that the person may require this. At the end of the day, healthcare is about treating the people and not making it a burden for them in the long run. So, yes, in the long run, you have to basically make it more affordable to have these tests. That is what the government hospitals are for. The government has to focus on making the public health infrastructure better, have more capacity at the government hospital so that the people don't have to run towards private sector if they can't afford it. All right, then it brings us to the end of today's webinar. Some people are asking for my mail ID. This is my email ID for those who are asking. HARSHMEET. All right, then. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you learned something new today. Do join us for the next webinar soon. Have a good day ahead. Bye bye. Jai Hind.